What on earth is this? This is structural unclarity? You'd better clean this mess. Structural unclarity relates to the big things in your thesis or essay. So basically, if it is a thesis or chapters, subchapters, paragraphs, and even sentences. So these are structures. I will also talk about footnotes a little bit later. The unclarity on this particular level may happen then you just get distracted. So you wrote your chapter and there are some subchapters inside it. You got distracted and you wrote something that doesn't really fit into the logic of your chapter. As you remember, I mentioned it in this video, each chapter should actually answer a particular research question. But if you got distracted, you actually may have written something that doesn't really belong to the logic of that particular chapter. Imagine you write a thesis about Shakespeare and you have a subchapter about the family background of Shakespeare and its influence on his works. And writing that particular section, you get distracted and you suddenly write something about friends. So you found something really interesting about the influence of his friends on his plays. And after a while, you understood that this particular section on friends actually doesn't answer the research question about the family background of Shakespeare. You have actually two options. Either delete this particular section and forget about it, or if you spend weeks on writing about friends, you may actually wish to write a separate chapter on the influence of friends and relegate this section to that chapter. Or maybe you actually would wish to put that friend section in the appendix. Appendices is something really just about extra. If you think about really academic publishing, if you think about continuing on then your master's, your PhD, you perhaps wish to develop this particular section of chapter into a research article one day. So you can just put it in the separate folder like research articles and it will be okay. There is a lot of unclarity on the level of paragraphs. Sometimes paragraphs do not fit into the logic of your chapter. It may happen because, again, we get distracted. It's normal for human beings to be distracted and to think chaotically. So what we gonna do on the editing stage? Then we notice that we have a paragraph that doesn't fit into the logic of this particular chapter. Delete it. If it's just a paragraph that is not written properly, you create a structure in this paragraph. How? First, remember about topic sentences. I made some videos about topic sentences. You can watch them here or somewhere. Basically, then you write a paragraph. First, you write chaotic ideas, right? So you just write something. Then on the editing stage, you create a topic sentence. Topic sentence is something that introduces the paragraph, that says what the paragraph is about. And it's usually a brief sentence. It's not a long one. It's just a brief sentence. If you make every paragraph starting with the topic sentence, you can actually then read through your chapter, read your topic sentences and follow if there is a logic between them. So they are indicators of the structure of your chapter actually. Ideally, they should be these indicators. Each paragraph should have a small conclusion, one concluding sentence. But imagine if you just write a conclusion to each paragraph, it may sound boring, it may sound odd. So what we're gonna do in this particular situation, either we conclude a paragraph in the last sentence of the paragraph, or we make a transitional sentence to another paragraph, which is kind of also good. And if you read through your chapter, you read this topic sentence, and then you read the concluding sentence of the paragraph, and then again topic sentence and concluding sentence, you read through the chapter in this way. And if it makes sense, if this structure actually reflects the logic of your chapter, the argument of your chapter, so it means that your chapter is written very clearly. With the same idea, you can actually approach the subchapters. So each subchapter should start with a small introduction, which actually may say what is inside this chapter or subchapter. Or so whatever, if you have subchapters. So basically, in the beginning of each subchapter, you should write a couple of sentences indicating what you're going to do in this particular subchapter. At the end of this subchapter, again, in one small paragraph, you should write a conclusion of this subchapter. It will help you then you will write a conclusion for entire chapter. You'll just simply collect all your conclusions of the subchapters into the conclusion of your chapter. Usually conclusion is just simply a paraphrase of the things you've just written in the subchapter, right? So it's just a conclusion, like a summary of all your findings that you described in this subchapter. So you collect them in the conclusion of a chapter. Something that really improves the clarity on the structural level is this small thing. At the beginning of each chapter, in the introduction of the chapter, mention what you're going to do in this particular chapter. Mention the structure of your chapter. First, second, third, so on. So just mention this structure. It will help your reader to navigate, let's say, throughout your chapter. So they already get the impression what they should expect to see in your chapter, okay? So this is very helpful actually for the reader to understand what they should actually expect. I said that I should mention also the footnotes, and the footnotes are also, there's something like they are structural element of your thesis, right? So this means simply that they also should be written clearly. I'll show you something. In some fields like history, for instance, and that I'm partially below, in some fields people really like a lot of footnotes. Researchers, students write a lot of footnotes. And so look at this. So sometimes this is basically my book. This is my published dissertation, and you see these are the footnotes. Basically a half of a page of footnotes. This is not just the references to primary sources or secondary literature. These are also extra information. So historians, they like to put extra information in the footnotes. Or, for instance, they like to put references to additional literature, or something like that. It's not necessarily to do it at all. You can't just limit your footnotes to references to secondary and primary literature, and that's it. What you shouldn't do with footnotes is to put the essential information in them. Put all the essential information, the information that is necessary to understand your argument, in the main text. Just put it in the main text. Footnotes is something extra, something that reader perhaps should skip and just proceed to other chapters. So just put all essential information somewhere that it should belong in your chapter, in the main text, and all extra in the footnotes. Or if you feel like there is a lot of extra, you may actually think about putting it into appendices. So in the next video, we will talk about contextual clarity and unclarity. The contextual clarity is something that relates to the context, as you may imagine. So either there is little context to understand what you are writing about, or a lot of details, and your reader is drawing in these details and don't understand your argument because maybe there are also problems with structural clarity. Now you have a task. just go to your written work and check if these things are written clearly in terms of structural clarity for now. Then go back to the next video to understand what the contextual clarity is about and how to gain it. So, see ya!